A sickening throb of pain emanated from the old wound across my chest as the transport vessel cut its descent through the thick, crimson-hued atmosphere of Crimson Prime. 5 long years had passed since the brutal clash at the Battle of Broken Stars, yet the injury flared up every time I ventured close to a sector claimed by the vampiric clans. Some traumas never truly fade, do they? Helena Vega, the diplomatic attaché seated next to me, commented. Her voice was sharp, laced with barely contained disdain. Remember, you are here merely as a precautionary presence. Do not utter a single word unless you are directly addressed. I offered no reply to Helena. My oldest companion had, since joining the diplomatic corps, morphed into nothing more than a rigid functionary. She had forgotten the harsh reality of the front lines, forgotten the very reason we took up arms. Now she was clad in silks instead of combat armor, speaking of treaties instead of survival. The home world of the vampires was drenched in a sky of deep red, coloring the landscape in shades of spilled blood. How fitting, I mused, considering the colossal price paid in lives, both theirs and ours. The major war had concluded 2 years ago, but peace felt like nothing more than the tense, low-volume silence between explosions. Cease your sullen introspection, Helena murmured, straightening her formal attire. This event is pivotal, the first official congregation since the armistice. Try not to sabotage it with your intense disposition. I didn't request this assignment, I reminded her flatly. No, but your specific name was requested, she said, her brow furrowing as she glanced at her datapad. By Queen Saraphina herself, no less. That tidbit gave me pause. The vampire queen wanted me at her court? I was an insignificant figure now, just one more scarred veteran striving to put the past behind me. My hand instinctively moved, tracing the raised tissue beneath the thin material of my dress uniform jacket. The spaceport itself was a testament to vampire architectural prowess. Its organic, flowing curves resembled frozen, sculpted blood, illuminated by bioluminescent crystals that pulsed with an internal, deep light. Guards in elaborate ceremonial armor observed our arrival with eyes the color of blood, their fangs gleaming when they smiled, a smile that was purely predatory. Humans, one sneered, the word heavy with amusement. So breakable. So fleeting. I continued walking. I had personally executed enough of his species to know they bled the same color as anyone else. The palace loomed ahead, appearing to twist toward the dark heavens like a living monument. They claimed the Crimson Throne had stood firm for 10 millennia, enduring wars, peace, and the rise and fall of countless empires. Now it was set to host the inaugural human delegation since the ceasefire. Inside, the great hall was thick with unspoken tension. Vampires in ornate garments mingled with delegates from a dozen different species. The Andromedan crystalline entities produced soft, musical chimes from their corner. The tidy water breathers floated within their specialized environmental suits. And everywhere, vampires watched with ancient eyes that had witnessed civilizations crumble to dust. The human delegation, an announcer declared, his voice possessing an impossible resonance, led by Ambassador Helena Vega and Adrien Blackthornne, hero of Broken Stars. I recoiled internally at the title. A hero, as if there was anything honorable about seeing your family perish while you survived. As if the jagged scar on my chest was a medal instead of a vivid mark of failure. The crowd respectfully parted, creating an unobstructed path to the throne. And there she was. Queen Seraphina bore no resemblance to the monstrous image painted by our propaganda media. Where our news feeds showed a beast, I beheld something infinitely more hazardous. A beauty capable of stopping hearts both literally and figuratively. Hair the color of midnight flowed over shoulders as pale as ivory. Her gown seemed woven from starlight and shadow, but it was her eyes that captivated me, ancient violet orbs that felt like they had witnessed the birth and death of stars. "Approach," she commanded, her voice like velvet drawn over sharpened steel. Helena instantly stepped forward, commencing the formal introduction. "Your Majesty, on behalf of the Terran Federation." "Not her," the Queen interrupted, her gaze still fixed on mine. "Him." The entire hall fell silent. Even the soft chiming of the Andromedans ceased. "Me?" My voice came out rougher than intended. "You," she confirmed, rising from her throne with a liquid grace. "Adrien Blackthornne, the man credited with eliminating 300 of my warriors at Broken Stars. The human who withstood Duke Malakar's entire battalion and lived." With every deliberate step she took towards me, the sound seemed to reverberate through the vast chamber. Vampires had no need for breath, yet I could swear several of them gasped. "Your Majesty," Helena tried again, a thin layer of panic cracking her professional veneer. Perhaps we should transition to discussing the treaty provisions. Silence. The single word snapped Helena's mouth shut. The Queen's power surged through the space like an unstoppable ancient tide. She halted directly in front of me, close enough for me to notice the faint flecks of silver in her violet eyes. Close enough to detect a scent like a mix of winter roses and old iron blood. "Remove your jacket," she ordered. "I don't think." "Remove your jacket." Behind her, I noticed movement. Duke Malachar, her military commander, had stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade, his expression promising immediate violence. The other vampires watched with keen, predatory curiosity. Whatever this was, it was far removed from the diplomatic script. I slowly shrugged off my dress uniform jacket, standing in my undershirt. The scar was clearly visible through the thin fabric, a jagged line running from my left collarbone to just above my heart. It was a trophy, yes, but a trophy of the day I lost everything. The Queen raised one alabaster hand. "May I?" I gave a curt nod, unable to trust my voice. Her fingers were ice-cold as they traced the scar through my shirt. The touch sent a jolt of raw electricity through my nervous system. For a fleeting instant, I was transported back to the battlefield. Plasma fire, the screaming, my daughter's voice calling through the smoke, my wife's hand going lifeless in my own. "Such profound sorrow," she whispered, and for a moment, her ancient voice held a trace of genuine grief. "Such enormous loss." Then louder, addressing the entire hall, "This scar, do you all see it?" Murmurs of confirmation rustled through the assembled delegates. Queen Seraphina turned, her hand still pressed against my chest. When she next spoke, her voice resonated with the full force of a royal decree. "This is where my heart belongs." The resulting silence was deafening, before erupting into utter pandemonium. "Your Majesty, you absolutely cannot." Duke Malachar's furious objection was cut short by her raised hand. "I can," she stated. "This human bears the mark of destiny. He has slaughtered hundreds of our people," another vampire noble snarled. "He is the butcher of broken stars." "And I am the queen of 10,000 nights," Seraphina countered, her power flaring outwards, causing several vampires to physically step back. "I have decreed it." Helena seized my arm. "Adrien, what have you done?" she hissed. "I haven't done a damn thing," I retorted, pulling free as anger flared within me. "I don't even understand what is happening." The Queen turned back to me, and for a split second, her mask of royal authority slipped. I glimpsed something beneath it, recognition, perhaps regret. Before I could make sense of it, she was all business again. "You will remain at court," she announced, "as my special guest." "Like hell I will," I muttered. She smiled, and I was powerfully reminded that vampires were apex predators long before humanity even discovered fire. To refuse a royal invitation would be undiplomatic. She had cornered me. Refusal would undoubtedly sink any chance of a lasting peace. Helena's career would be ruined. The fragile ceasefire might shatter. All because the vampire queen had touched my scar and issued a baffling declaration. "Your Majesty," Admiral Corrin stepped forward from the human delegation, humanity's hawk, always advocating for military action. "Surely you appreciate that this is highly irregular. Blackthornne is viewed as a war criminal by your people. And a hero by yours," the Queen responded. "How fascinating the fluidity of perspective can be." She made a subtle gesture, and servants materialized from the shadows. "Prepare the azure wing for our guest. He shall want for nothing." "Your Majesty," Duke Malachar attempted one last time, his voice meticulously controlled, "the council will certainly have concerns. Then the council may voice them. Tomorrow." Her tone implied that tomorrow might never come for those who opposed her. "Tonight we feast. We celebrate the dawn of a new era, one where ancient wounds may finally begin to heal." Her eyes met mine again, and that electric touch seemed to linger on my chest. "After all," she said softly, meant only for me, "some scars run far deeper than others." The feast that ensued was a chaotic blend of alien delicacies and thinly veiled threats. I was seated at the Queen's right hand, feeling exactly like a gazelle invited to a lion's banquet. Every vampire present watched me with poorly concealed hunger or hatred. The other species observed with intense curiosity, clearly attempting to decipher the complex game being played. Helena managed to corner me during a pause between the endless courses. "What did you do?" she hissed. "This was never supposed to happen. You were just meant to stand there and look camera-ready heroic." "I didn't do anything," I insisted. "She's the one who declared you her heart's destination," or whatever that nonsense was. Helena's professional composure was rapidly fracturing. Do you grasp the magnitude of this? The political ramifications. Enlighten me. It means you are now the most prized and most hunted human in the entire galaxy, she whispered, glancing nervously around. Half the vampires here want you executed for your actions in the war. The other half are probably wondering what makes you so exceptionally vital to their queen. And don't even get me started on Admiral Corrin. I located the Admiral across the room, engrossed in a discussion with his military aides. His expression was thunderous as he occasionally glared in my direction. Great, I muttered. So I'm everyone's enemy now. Or everyone's opportunity. Helena's voice dropped even lower. Adrien, you must be extremely cautious. Whatever complex game the Queen is playing, you are just a pawn on the board. Before I could respond, a young vampire appeared at my elbow. Unlike the others, he appeared more amused than hostile. Adrien Blackthornne, he said with a slight, polite bow. I am Kale, Her Majesty's personal secretary. I'm assigned to escort you to your quarters after the feast. You mean a prison cell? I asked. He let out a surprisingly human laugh. Hardly. The Azure Wing is the finest guest suite in the palace. You'll find it quite comfortable, even measured by human standards. He leaned in, a conspiratorial glint in his eye. Just between us, I had the climate controls adjusted. I know you humans run warm, despite everything. I found myself almost liking him. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, he replied cheerfully. You haven't seen what tomorrow holds. The feast stretched on, a tedious progression of dishes I couldn't identify and wine that tasted like liquid starlight. The Queen occasionally drew me into conversation, inquiring about Earth, about human customs, anything but the war or her bewildering public statement. She was engaging, quick-witted, and utterly terrifying. Finally, mercifully, the ordeal concluded. Kale guided me through hallways that appeared to subtly shift and flow when I wasn't looking directly at them. Vampire architecture, he explained, was partially psychic, designed to respond to the thoughts and desires of those within. A bit unsettling for humans, he conceded, but you'll either adjust to it or lose your mind. One of the two. Comforting. The Azure Wing was indeed lavish. A suite that would cost a year's salary back on Earth, offering a view of the sprawling Crimson City below. The bed looked appropriately sized for a human, and I noted that my personal belongings had already been delivered and neatly unpacked. The Queen will want to see you tomorrow, Kale stated quietly, preparing to depart. And if I refuse? He gave me a look that was a blend of sympathy and warning. Has anyone ever successfully refused Her Majesty? There's always a first time. True, he said, but the first time is typically also the last time. He paused at the door. Oh, a piece of advice. Whatever you believe is happening here, you are mistaken. The Queen acts only with profound purpose. That declaration tonight? It's already sending shockwaves through the vampire nobility. By tomorrow, every news feed in the galaxy will be dissecting it. Dissecting what, exactly? She touched my scar and uttered some cryptic nonsense. That's not exactly a clear message. Kale's smile was enigmatic. Isn't it? Sleep well, Adrien Blackthornne. Tomorrow the true game commences. He left and I was alone with my dark thoughts and the alien view. I walked to the window, staring out at the city of monsters that had populated humanity's worst nightmares for generations. Somewhere in this palace, the Queen was undoubtedly dealing with the fallout of her dramatic gesture. Why me? Why now? My hand instinctively returned to my chest, touching the scar through my shirt. The plasma blade that created it should have been fatal. It would have been, had my daughter not thrown herself in front of me at the last second, absorbing the full force of the blast meant for my heart. Emma was 6 years old. My wife, Sarah, was caught by the second blast while trying to reach her. I survived. They did not. And now, the queen of the species we fought was claiming my scar was where her heart belonged. There had to be an ulterior motive, a calculated plot. Vampires didn't live for millennia by being sentimental. A soft chime interrupted my brooding. The room's comm system activated, projecting a hologram of Helena. Adrien, thank the stars, she said without preamble. I've been trying to reach you. Listen, something is escalating. Admiral Corrin is mobilizing his backers. He's arguing the Queen has bewitched you. That this entire thing is a vampire scheme to destabilize the peace talks. That's absurd. Is it? Helena's face was grave. Adrien, what if he's right? What if this is an elaborate act of manipulation? You have to admit it's bizarre. Out of every human in the galaxy, why you? I had no answer. But as I stood there, I recalled the look in the queen's eyes when she had touched my scar, that fleeting expression of something almost human. Recognition. Babe. I don't know, I admitted. But I plan to find out. Be careful, Helena warned. You're walking through a minefield and everyone is waiting for you to make a wrong move. The communication ended, leaving me in silence once more. The Crimson City outside pulsed with alien life. Somewhere in the palace, both vampires and humans were plotting, planning, and preparing for the next move. I touched my scar again. Whatever game was underway, I was in too deep to retreat now. The Queen had ensured that with her public declaration. Tomorrow, Kale had said, the real game begins. I suspected that was a profound understatement. The summons arrived before the sun rose. Not that dawn meant much on Crimson Prime, where the sun was a distant red ember barely piercing the perpetual twilight. Kale stood at my door, looking far too alert for someone who didn't require sleep. Rise and shine, warrior, he greeted, presenting a tray that held what looked like breakfast. Her Majesty requests your presence in an hour. Requests or commands? Is there a difference? He set the tray down and moved to the windows, adjusting the opacity. I brought human food. Real coffee too, not that synthetic garbage. The aroma hit me like a powerful memory of home. I sat up, suddenly aware of my hunger. Thanks. Any advice for this meeting? Be honest, Kale said, then chuckled at my expression. I know, terrible advice when dealing with vampires, but the Queen possesses an almost uncanny ability to detect deception. It has served her well through 10,000 years of court intrigue. 10,000 years? I repeated, sipping the coffee. It was perfect. Hard to imagine living that long. She was ancient when your species discovered fire, Kale stated matter-of-factly. She has seen empires rise and fall, watched stars die and be born. And yet, he paused, weighing his words. Last night was the first time in centuries I've seen her show genuine interest in anything outside of duty. You've stirred something in her, Adrien Blackthornne. I'm not certain if that's a good or bad thing for you. After he left, I dressed in the clothes provided, a strange, functional blend of human and vampire aesthetics. The material felt alive against my skin, seamlessly adjusting to my temperature and movements. Vampire technology was a mix of hard science and something entirely other. An hour later, Kale led me through corridors I hadn't seen before. These were older, the architecture more organic, giving the impression that the palace had grown rather than been built. Bioluminescent veins pulsed in the walls, and I swore I could hear a faint heartbeat echoing in the distance. The old palace, Kale explained, built before humans had language. Few are permitted entry here. Lucky me. Indeed. The Queen's private chamber was a stark contrast to the throne room, intimate rather than imposing, filled with artifacts from 100 worlds. Books that appeared older than human civilization lined one wall. A window showed not the city but a view of deep space, stars wheeling in patterns that were difficult to follow. Saraphina stood with her back to us, wearing a simple gown that somehow made her more striking than any royal regalia. Leave us, Kale. The secretary bowed and departed, giving me one last unreadable glance. Do you know why I chose you? She asked without turning around. I was hoping you would enlighten me. She laughed, a sound like the chime of silver bells and broken glass. Honest? Good. Sit please. This will require some time. I chose a chair that looked the least likely to consume me. She finally turned, and in the soft light of her chamber, she looked almost vulnerable, almost human. Tell me about your scar, she requested, settling gracefully across from me. You seem to know already. I know the wound. Tell me about the moment. I hadn't spoken about it to anyone, not the military therapists, not Helena, not even to myself in the dark hours before dawn. But something in her violet eyes demanded the unvarnished truth. It was chaos. The battle of broken stars. Your forces had breached our defenses. I was trying to get my family to the evacuation shuttles. My throat tightened. Emma saw the vampire warrior before I did. Saw him raise his plasma blade. She pushed me. The words were raw. The blade meant for my heart struck her instead. Went right through. And Sarah, my wife, tried to reach Emma. Another blast hit her. I survived because my family died for me. Silence hung heavy between us. When I finally looked up, there was a sheen in the Queen's ancient eyes that looked suspiciously like tears. Impossible. Vampires don't weep. The warrior who killed them, she said softly. Do you recall his face? Every night. Describe him. I closed my eyes, summoning the nightmare image. Young-looking, though who knows with vampires. Silver hair with red streaks, a scar across his left eye. He laughed when I stopped, opening my eyes to find her standing. Raziel, she whispered. My youngest progeny. The name hit me like a physical blow. I was on my feet, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon I didn't possess. You're what? Not by blood, she quickly clarified. By transformation. I turned him 3 centuries ago. He was troubled, violent even by vampire standards. I thought I could mentor him, teach him control. Her composure fractured slightly. I failed. He murdered my family. Yes. No excuses, no justifications, just stark acknowledgement. He died at Broken Stars. You killed him actually, she stated, about 20 minutes after he. I remembered. The pure, blinding rage had carried me through half the vampire lines before reinforcements arrived. Why are you telling me this? She moved to a shelf, retrieving something wrapped in dark cloth. Because debts must be settled. Because some wounds transcend the boundaries between species. She unwrapped the object, revealing a crystalline blade that seemed to absorb all light. Because I have lived 10,000 years, and I am weary of the weight of my failures. Is that the blade that killed your family? Raziel's blade, she confirmed. She held it out to me. By vampire law, it is yours by right of conquest. I stared at the weapon that had destroyed my world. Part of me wanted to seize it, shatter it, destroy every atom. Another part recoiled, unable to bear the touch. Why? The word came out choked. Why did you truly call me here? The declaration last night? This confession? What's your end game? No game, she insisted, setting the blade on the table between us. When I touched your scar last night, I felt it. The echo of my failure. Every life Raziel took, I bear responsibility. I created him. I unleashed him. Your pain. Your loss. They are mine to carry too. That's not how it works. She moved closer and I caught the scent again, winter roses and old blood. I have lived long enough to know that some connections transcend logic. Your scar carries the weight of my greatest mistake. When I said, it's where my heart belongs, I meant it literally. A piece of my essence is bound to that wound, to that moment of loss. You're saying we're connected because your progeny murdered my family? Anger and disbelief warred in my chest. That's insane. Is it? Haven't you felt it? The pull. The reason your scar aches when you're near vampire territory. The dreams where you see through ancient eyes. I wanted to deny it, but the words died in my throat. The dreams. They had begun after Broken Stars. Visions of worlds I'd never seen. Memories of centuries I hadn't lived. I had blamed it on trauma, on PTSD. But what if you're in my head? No more than you are in mine, she countered, touching her own chest, mirroring the location of my scar. The wound created a bond. Vampire metaphysics are complex, but simply put, when Raziel died by your hand while carrying my essence, it forged a connection. You carry a piece of me, Adrien Blackthornne, just as I carry your pain. The implication staggered me. I sank back into the chair, mind reeling. So what? We're psychically linked because of some vampire magic accident. Not an accident, her voice turned bitter. A consequence. Everything in our world carries a price. I gave Raziel power without wisdom. You paid for my mistake. Now we're bound by that payment. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I, she returned to her seat, suddenly looking every one of her 10,000 years. But here we are. The question is what we do about it. Before I could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the palace. Kale burst through the door without a trace of ceremony. Your Majesty, we have a situation. Duke Malachar has called an emergency session of the Blood Council. He's challenging your declaration from last night. Saraphina's expression hardened, the vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of regal authority. On what grounds? Contamination of the royal line, Kale quickly explained. He claims the human has bewitched you. He's demanding Blackthornne submit to examination by the council's truth seekers. Examination being a polite word for torture, I guessed. More or less, Kale confirmed. The queen stood, power radiating from her slight frame. He moves faster than I anticipated. Very well. Summon my supporters. We will face this challenge. Your Majesty, another voice interrupted. A vampire guard appeared in the doorway, his face grim. There is more. The human delegation is also in uproar. Admiral Corrin has confined Ambassador Vega to her quarters and is demanding Blackthornne's immediate return. Confined Helena? I was on my feet again. He can't do that. He can if he declares a security emergency, the guard stated, which he has. He claims you've been compromised, that you pose a threat to human interests. Saraphina and I exchanged a look. In one night, we had managed to unite both our species against us. It seems we have less time than I thought, she murmured. Then louder, Kale, prepare my formal robes. If Malachar wishes to challenge me before the council, he will face the Queen of 10,000 Knights, not the woman. She turned to me. You will need to come too. As the subject of dispute, you have the right to speak. Do I have the right to survive the experience? Her smile was as sharp as any blade. That remains to be seen. The Blood Council convened in the deepest section of the palace, a chamber that predated the rest of the structure. 13 ancient vampires sat in a circle. Their combined age likely exceeded that of human civilization. Duke Malachar stood in the center, his scarred face twisted with righteous fury. Brothers and sisters of the blood, he intoned, I come before you with grave concerns. Our queen, she who has guided us for millennia, has fallen under the influence of a human. Worse, the human who butchered hundreds of our kind. Murmurs rippled through the assembled vampires. I stood beside Saraphina, feeling incredibly mortal and fragile. The queen herself sat on a throne of polished bone, looking every inch the ancient ruler. Present your evidence, Malachar, one of the council members said. This vampire looked old even by their standards, skin like parchment and eyes like dying stars. The evidence is blatant, Malachar declared. In full view of the court, she touched this human and declared her heart belongs with him. She has brought him into the old palace, sharing secrets of our kind. I submit that she has been compromised either through human trickery or, he paused dramatically, through the bond of a failed progeny. The silence was deafening. Several council members turned sharp gazes on Saraphina. You told him about Raziel, the Ancient One said, his tone a statement, not a question. The truth is not a weapon to be feared, Saraphina replied calmly. The truth, Malachar snarled, is that your pet human carries the blood echo of your greatest failure. The bond forged in violence and death now corrupts your judgment. You would elevate the killer of your own progeny to stand beside you. I would acknowledge the debt owed, the queen countered. Raziel acted under my aegis when he murdered innocents. His victims deserve recognition. His victims were human, another council member interjected. Since when do we concern ourselves with their losses? Since we signed a peace treaty, Saraphina said. Or have you forgotten that the war is over? The war is never over, Malachar hissed. It merely pauses. And you would hand our enemies the ultimate weapon, access to our queen's very thoughts and feelings through this abomination of a bond. I had heard enough. May I speak? Every vampire in the room turned to stare. Apparently, humans weren't usually permitted to speak in Blood Council sessions. You have the right, the Ancient One said slowly. Though I warn you, human. Choose your words carefully. This chamber has drunk the blood of kings. I stepped forward, ignoring the predatory glares. Duke Malachar talks about the bond like it's some sort of strategic advantage. Like I asked for this. Like I wanted to be connected to the person responsible for training my family's killer. And yet here you stand, Malachar sneered, beside our queen like a pet. I stand here, I interrupted, because she was the only one honest enough to admit the truth. My government wants to use me as a symbol. Your duke wants me dead for revenge. She's the only one who looked me in the eye and acknowledged the pain. Pretty words, Malachar said. But words won't protect our people when human fleets. Saraphina interrupted. Enough. You speak of protecting our people. Tell me, Malachar, how many vampires died in your last glorious assault? How many younglings did you send to their final death for the sake of your pride? They died as warriors. They died as pawns, she corrected, standing. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Just as you would make us all pawns in your endless war. The humans are no longer our enemies, Malachar. Your hatred is. You dare. I dare because I am queen. Power seemed to roll off her invisible waves. I have guided our people through the ascent and collapse of empires. I have witnessed our transformation from thoughtless predators to a star-spanning civilization. I will not allow your narrow-mindedness to drag us back into the darkness. Then you are no longer fit to rule, Malachar declared, drawing a ceremonial blade whose edge shimmered with a sickly light. I challenge your right to lead. Trial by combat as the old laws demand. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even I knew the gravity of this. The queen's expression remained impassive, but through our bond, I felt a quick flash of alarm instantly suppressed. Accept it, she stated simply. Your Majesty, Kale protested, stepping forward. Duke Malachar is widely considered the greatest warrior of his generation. Perhaps. I said accepted, she repeated, turning to the council. Bear witness. Tomorrow at the blood moon's apex, we will settle this by the ancient ways. Unless, Malachar said with a cold, triumphant smile, you would prefer to name a champion. I recognized the trap immediately. If she named a champion, it would be perceived as weakness. If she fought herself? I'll do it, I heard myself say. The words were out before I could stop them. Every vampire in the room turned to gawk at me as if I had suddenly grown a second head. You? Malachar scoffed, a single sharp laugh. A human? You cannot be serious. The law permits it, the ancient council member spoke slowly. Any individual bound to the challenged party by blood or bond may stand as champion. This is preposterous. Malachar spluttered. A human cannot possibly face a vampire in ritual combat. Afraid? I challenged, echoing his own fury. His face contorted with rage. You dare. I dare, I echoed Saraphina's earlier retort. Unless the great Duke Malachar is intimidated by one fragile human. The queen gripped my arm. Through our bond, I felt her sudden panic. Adrien, you don't understand. Ritual combat is to the death. No weapons, no armor. Just. I know. I met her violet eyes. But this is my fight too. Your progeny killed my family. Your duke wants me dead. Your council questions our connection. Let me finish this. You will die, she stated simply. Probably. I touched my scar. But I'm tired of being everyone's symbol. At least this way I choose my own fate. She studied me for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. You truly are full of surprises, Adrien Blackthornne. She turned back to the council. I name this human as my champion. Let any who question it speak now. Silence. So be it, the Ancient One intoned. Tomorrow at the blood moon's apex, Duke Malachar will face the human Adrien Blackthornne in ritual combat. May the darkness show mercy to the fallen. As we left the chamber, Kale fell into step beside us. That was either incredibly brave or profoundly stupid. Both, I conceded. Any chance you could give me a crash course in not dying tomorrow? Vampire ritual combat has never included a human. Actually, I don't think it ever has, he said thoughtfully. This should be interesting. Interesting. Just great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear before my probable death. Saraphina remained silent until we reached her chambers. Then she whirled on me, her violet eyes blazing. Why? You know why, I answered, surprised by my own composure. The bond goes both ways, right? I felt your concern. Malachar has defeated you before, hasn't he? In personal combat. Her silence was sufficient answer. So he challenges you now when you're distracted by our connection, thinking he'll finally seize the throne. I shook my head. I've dealt with men like him my entire life. They only understand one language, violence and finality. I moved to the window looking out at the alien city. He'll never accept peace as long as he thinks humans are weak. Your people will never accept me as long as they see me as just the butcher of broken stars. This fight changes the narrative. If you win. Even if I lose, I corrected, turning back to her. A human standing up to vampire nobility, fighting for the queen's honor. Win or lose, it sends a message. Dead men send no messages. Sure they do, I countered. Sometimes those are the loudest ones. She moved closer, and this time, beneath the roses and blood, I detected something else. Fear. I've lost too much to my failures, she said quietly. Raziel was one of many. I don't want to add your name to that list. You won't, I replied, touching my scar. You gave me Raziel's blade earlier. Teach me to use it. Give me a fighting chance. Ritual combat forbids weapons. Then teach me to fight like a vampire, I managed a grim smile. I have about 18 hours to absorb 10,000 years of combat techniques. We'd better get started. What followed was the most rigorous training of my life. Vampires fought differently than humans. They were faster, stronger, and had centuries to refine their skills. But they also had patterns, habits etched by long lives. Saraphina taught me to recognize them, to exploit the very arrogance that came with near immortality. Malachar favors his right side, she explained, moving through combat forms with fluid grace. He's used it for 800 years. He won't expect you to notice because humans don't live long enough to study patterns. Exactly. Use that. Use everything they assume about you against them. As she moved, I felt our bond pulse. Not just emotions now but muscle memory and combat instincts honed over millennia. It was like downloading expertise directly into my nervous system, painful and exhilarating in equal measure. The bond is strengthening, she noted during a brief break. That could be advantageous. Or it could get us both killed. I was drenched in sweat. She looked perfectly composed. What happens to you if I die tomorrow? The bond will snap, leaving only emptiness. She looked away. I felt it before when progeny have died. But this is different, stronger because of how it formed. Because of who you are. She met my eyes. I've created hundreds of progeny, loved some, tolerated others, failed many. But you're the first to choose me back even knowing what I cost you. You didn't kill my family, I corrected. Raziel did. A distinction without a difference. No, I moved closer, compelled by an unnamed force. You took responsibility. You offered truth when everyone else offered lies or politics. That matters. Does it? Her voice was barely a whisper. Or am I just another monster finding a kind of redemption in your pain? I thought about the sheer absurdity of preparing to die for the creature whose progeny had destroyed my world. About bonds forged in blood and the strange, winding paths of fate. Maybe, I admitted. But you're my monster now. She laughed, surprised. Yours? The bond goes both ways, you said it yourself. I touched my scar, then reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. My hand found her chest, where a human heart would beat. This is where my rage belonged. My need for revenge. But maybe it's time for something else to live there. Adrien, tomorrow I might die. Tonight, I said, I want to understand what we're really fighting for. Not the politics or the treaties. This impossible thing between us. She covered my hand with hers. Through the bond, I felt centuries of loneliness, of power without connection, of endless nights watching civilizations rise and fall with no one to share the view. You terrify me, she confessed. A human who should hate me, who has every reason to want me dead, and instead you're willing to die for my honor. I've lived 10,000 years, and I've never encountered anyone like you. Guess humans are full of surprises. One human, she corrected. You. The charged moment shattered as Kale burst in once again. Your Majesty, we have a major problem. Admiral Corrin has issued an ultimatum. Either Blackthornne returns to human custody immediately, or he will consider it an act of war. He's bluffing, I said immediately. Is he? Another figure entered, Helena, haggard but determined. Adrien, you need to listen. Corrin has been planning this. He wants the war to continue. Peace doesn't serve his ambitions. How did you get here? I escaped. With help, she glanced at Kale. Not everyone wants this peace to fail. But Adrien, if you fight tomorrow, if you stand as the Queen's champion, Corrin will use it as proof you've been compromised. He'll restart the war. And if I don't fight, Malachar takes the throne and restarts it anyway, I countered. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Saraphina said quietly. The challenge has been issued and accepted. The ancient laws must be upheld. Then we're trapped, Helena lamented. Either Adrien dies tomorrow or he triggers a new war. Or, I said slowly, a new idea forming, he does something impossible. They all turned to look at me. I win, I continued. Not just the fight. I win so decisively, so impossibly, that both sides have to stop and reconsider. I become proof that humans and vampires can be more than enemies. That's insane, Helena said. That's the point. I felt a grim smile tugging at my lips. Sanity hasn't worked. Politics hasn't worked. Maybe it's time for something crazy. You're talking about changing millennia of hatred with one fight, Kale said, awe in his voice. I'm talking about changing the story, I corrected. Right now, I'm either the butcher of broken stars or the Queen's pet human. Tomorrow I become something else. Something neither side has a script for. Saraphina squeezed my hand. And if you fail? Then at least I'll have tried. That's more than most get. The blood moon rose like a fresh wound in the sky. The arena was an ancient bowl, carved directly from the bedrock beneath the palace. Thousands of vampires filled the viewing galleries, their eyes gleaming in the crimson light. A smaller, segregated section held the human delegation. Admiral Corrin was front and center, his face like thunder. I stood in the center, clad in simple clothes that offered no protection. Across from me, Duke Malachar stripped off his ceremonial armor, revealing muscles like sculpted stone. Last chance, human, he called out. Kneel now and I'll make it quick. Generous of you, I replied. But I think I'll stand. The ancient council member raised his withered hand. Let all bear witness. This combat will determine the challenge to Queen Saraphina's rule. No weapons, no armor, no mercy. Fight until one yields or dies. I felt Saraphina's presence through our bond, her confidence warring with deep-seated fear. I sent back what I hoped was reassurance. Begin, the Ancient One commanded. Malachar moved with impossible speed. One moment he was across the arena, the next his fist was a blur driving toward my chest. I barely twisted aside, feeling the sheer wind of his passage. His follow-up strike caught me in the ribs, sending me flying. I hit the stone hard, tasting blood. The vampire crowd roared its approval. Get up. Seraphina's voice echoed in my mind. Remember what I taught you. I rolled aside as Malachar's foot shattered the stone where my head had been. Patterns. He did favor his right side. I came up moving, staying just out of reach. Run all you like, little human, he sneered. You're only prolonging the inevitable. He charged again, a blur of deadly motion. This time I was ready. As he committed to a right cross, I ducked left, driving my elbow into his kidney. It was like hitting solid rock, but he grunted. First blood, so to speak. Lucky hit, he snarled. Sure, I agreed, circling. Let's go with that. The next few minutes were a painful, desperate dance of evasion. Malachar was stronger, faster, and had centuries of experience, but he was predictable. Every attack followed patterns etched by time. Duck right, he hooks left. Step back, he overextends. I couldn't match him physically, but I didn't need to. I just had to survive long enough to, there. He dropped his shoulder a fraction before a devastating uppercut. I slid aside, grabbed his extended arm, and used his own momentum to flip him. He landed hard, more surprised than hurt, but the crowd fell silent. A human had just thrown a vampire duke. Impossible, someone whispered. Malachar scrambled up, snarling. All pretense of superiority was gone. Now he was taking me seriously. Unfortunately for me, the systematic beating that followed was brutal. He broke my left arm with contemptuous ease. Ribs cracked under his fists. Blood streamed down my face from a dozen cuts. But I kept getting up. Every time he knocked me down, I stood again. And each time I lasted a little longer. The bond with Saraphina pulsed, feeding me not strength but knowledge. How he shifted weight before a strike. The tell in his eyes before he feigned. Stay down, he roared after throwing me across the arena for the 10th time. I spat blood and stood again. Make me, Adrien. Enough. Helena's voice carried from the human section. You've proved your point. Had I? I looked around at the watching faces. Vampires who had been howling for my blood were now watching with something like respect, even fear. Because I wasn't following the script. Humans weren't supposed to stand against vampires, we were supposed to die quickly or cower. But I kept getting up. Why won't you fall? Malachar demanded. His perfect composure was cracking. What are you? I thought about my family, about Emma pushing me aside, about Sarah reaching for our daughter, about all the times I should have died but didn't. I'm the one who survives, I said simply. Always have been, even when I shouldn't. Then let's test that. He moved again, faster than ever. But this time I felt Seraphina's full presence flood through our bond. For one perfect, blinding moment, I saw through both human and vampire eyes. I saw the attack coming from angles impossible for mortal perception. I moved not away but forward inside his guard. My broken arm screamed protest as I grabbed his throat. My other hand found the pressure point Seraphina had shown me, the one vampires thought humans didn't know about. Yield, I said quietly, pressing harder. His eyes widened. The pressure point wouldn't kill him, but it would paralyze him temporarily, leaving him helpless before the entire nobility. You dare demand yield? Or I'll show everyone here that the great Duke Malachar can be beaten by one fragile human, I repeated. Your choice. Through the bond, I felt Seraphina's sheer amazement and something else, pride. Malachar's face cycled through rage, disbelief, and finally, a kind of resigned respect. You fight like them, he said quietly. Like the old ones. The first vampires who walked between worlds. I had a good teacher. So it seems. Louder, he declared, I yield. The arena erupted. Vampires shouted in a dozen languages. Humans looked stunned. Admiral Corrin's face had gone from red to purple. I released Malachar and immediately collapsed. The adrenaline was fading and everything hurt. But I had done it. Somehow impossibly. I had won. Seraphina was instantly beside me, cradling my broken body within human gentleness. You magnificent fool, she whispered. You actually did it. Told you, I managed. Humans are full of surprises. One human, she corrected again and kissed me. The arena went dead silent. When she pulled back, I saw tears on her cheeks, actual tears. The Queen of 10,000 Nights was crying. My heart, she said loud enough for all to hear, has always belonged to those who choose hope over hatred, who stand when they should fall, who see beyond the boundaries of species to something greater. She helped me stand, supporting my weight. Adrien Blackthornne represents the future. A future where humans and vampires build together instead of destroying each other. This proves nothing. Admiral Corrin's voice boomed across the arena. One rigged fight. Rigged? I found my voice, though it hurt to speak. I've got about 6 broken bones that disagree with you, Admiral. You've been compromised. That vampire which has. Enough. The word cracked like a whip. Not from Saraphina but from Malachar. The Duke stood, bloodied but unbowed. I challenged. I fought. I lost. To claim otherwise dishonors us all. He turned to face his supporters. We have hidden behind our superiority for too long. Tonight, a human stood against our best and won. Not through trickery or technology but through will. Perhaps it is time we considered that strength comes in many forms. You too, Duke? One of his lieutenants protested. They're just humans. Just humans who fought us to a standstill for 50 years, Malachar countered. Just humans who survived everything we threw at them. Just humans who produced him. He gestured to me. If one human can do this, what could we accomplish together? It wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement of peace, but coming from Malachar, it was practically a love song. This isn't over, Admiral Corrin declared. The human government will not recognize. The human government will recognize what I tell them to recognize, Helena interrupted, stepping forward. As the senior diplomat present, I am resuming command of this delegation. Admiral Corrin, you are relieved, pending investigation into your illegal confinement of diplomatic personnel. You can't. I can't. Security, please escort the Admiral to his quarters. Human security forces moved in, clearly having chosen sides. Corrin went, but not quietly, promising retribution and hinting at supporters back home. He's not wrong, Helena told me quietly as medics saw to my injuries. This isn't over. There will be challenges on both sides. I know, I winced as someone set my arm. But it's a start. A hell of a start. She looked between me and Saraphina. So, you and the Vampire Queen. It's complicated. Understatement of the millennium, she sighed. You realize what you've started. A human and a vampire, together? The political implications alone are. Tomorrow's problem, Saraphina interjected smoothly. Tonight we celebrate an impossibility made real. Tomorrow we commence the arduous task of forging a future neither of our species had dared to imagine. As they moved me toward the medical facilities, I caught a final glimpse of the arena. Vampires and humans were talking, actually conversing, not threatening or posturing. Some still appeared furious, suspicious, but others seemed genuinely curious, even hopeful. One combat hadn't changed everything, but it had irrevocably changed something. In the medical bay, as vampire healers collaborated with human doctors to mend my body, I felt the bond with Saraphina pulse warmly in my chest. It was no longer the reverberation of violence, but something new, something that, with time and vigilance, might blossom into the foundation for a new world. So, Cale remarked, appearing at my bedside with his customary perfect timing. That was adequately dramatic. Though, next time, perhaps win with a lower number of broken bones. The medical staff is complaining about the paperwork. Next time? I groaned. There's going to be a next time? Oh, absolutely. You've established quite the precedent. I expect challenge requests are already flooding in. Every vampire with something to prove will want to test themselves against the human who bested Duke Malachar. Great. Just great. Saraphina entered, having changed out of her formal robes into something simpler. Do not worry. As my acknowledged champion, you are under royal protection. Anyone who wishes to challenge you, challenges me. Hiding behind the queen's skirts, how modern, Malachar commented, entering the room. He moved stiffly but with his dignity intact. Did you require something, Duke? Seraphina's tone was cool. Yes. He faced me directly. I came to say something I have never said to a human before. I was incorrect. You fought with both honor and wisdom. I respect that. Thank you, I said, meaning it. He nodded curtly. I still maintain that vampires are superior. But perhaps superior beings can learn from those they deem lesser. Your survival instincts, your adaptability, your stubborn refusal to accept defeat. These possess value. Careful, Duke, Cale warned cheerfully. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was acknowledgement, Malachar corrected. The war is over. I see that now. What comes next remains to be determined. He left without another word. Progress, vampire style. Over the next few hours, as my body rapidly healed thanks to the advanced vampire medical technology, visitors came and went. Vampires who had lost family in the war but were exhausted by fighting, and humans who saw hope in the impossible event. Even some of the other alien species representatives stopped by, suddenly very interested in humanity's potential. Finally, as the blood moon set and something resembling dawn approached, Saraphina and I were alone. You changed everything tonight, she said softly. We changed everything, I corrected. This only succeeded because of our bond. Because you trusted me enough to share your strength, and I trusted you enough to use it. She studied my face. No regrets about the fight? No. About what comes next. I caught her hand. Ask me in a century or two. She laughed, the sound like silver bells and starlight. A century? So optimistic. The bond is already changing you. Is that what's happening? I could feel it, my body healing faster than it should, my senses sharpening, the bond pulsing with shared life. Am I becoming like you? No. You're becoming something new, something neither wholly human nor entirely vampire. She squeezed my hand. Something unique like us. A bridge between worlds, a living testament to what's possible when we choose connection over isolation. She leaned close. Your scar brought us together. Pain transformed into possibility. Very human, actually. And very vampire to make it dramatic, I teased. We do have a flair for the theatrical, she admitted. As the new day illuminated Crimson Prime, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, from the ashes of loss to the impossibility of love, from the butcher of broken stars to the queen's champion, from human to whatever I was becoming. The scar still ached and always would. But now it carried a new significance, not just loss but connection, not just pain but possibility. So, I said as Saraphina curled against me, careful of my injuries. What happens now? Now, she smiled, and for the first time, I saw undiluted hope in those ancient eyes. Now we write a new story. One where the monsters and the heroes learn they are not so different after all. That's either the most beautiful or most terrifying thing I've ever heard. Both, she said, echoing my own earlier words. The best stories always are. Outside, the crimson sun painted the sky in shades of blood and roses. But for the first time since Broken Stars, I saw beauty in it instead of death. The future stretched before us, uncertain and filled with challenges. But we would face them together. Human and vampire, bonded by loss, united by choice, building something the galaxy had never witnessed. My scar throbbed one last time, then settled into a gentle warmth, the place where her heart belonged and where mine was finally learning to heal. The beginning of something impossible, necessary, and profoundly real. The assassination attempt came 3 weeks later, on a morning when the crimson sun cast long shadows across my new quarters. I had relocated from the guest wing to rooms directly adjacent to Seraphina's, a statement that had sent powerful ripples through both human and vampire society. I sensed the killer before I saw him. The bond with Saraphina had changed me in ways I was still discovering. My reflexes were faster, my senses sharper. When the window shimmered with displaced air, I was already rolling off the bed. The plasma blade scorched the sheets where I had been lying. The assassin materialized fully, a vampire in stealth armor, youthful-looking but with ancient eyes. Nothing personal, human, he said, raising the blade for another strike. But some bridges should never be built. I grabbed Raziel's blade from the nightstand. I had taken to keeping it close, a reminder and a formidable weapon. The crystal sang as it clashed with the assassin's plasma blade, energies colliding in a shower of sparks. Funny, I grunted, parrying his next strike. That felt pretty personal. We danced across the room, our blades weaving patterns of light and death. He was highly skilled, trained in centuries of combat. But I possessed something he hadn't anticipated. Seraphina's memories flowed through our bond, showing me counters to techniques I'd never seen before. When security finally arrived, led by a concerned Cale, the assassin was unconscious on the floor, and I was sitting on the edge of my ruined bed, studying Raziel's blade. Well, Cale said, surveying the damage. I see you're adapting to vampire politics nicely. Is that assassination attempt number 3 or 4? 3, I asked. I'm losing count. 3. The poisoning last week doesn't count, That was merely enthusiastic seasoning. He grew serious. This one was professional. Shadow Guild if I had to guess. Great. And they are. Vampires who profit from conflict. War is excellent business for mercenaries. He gestured to the unconscious assassin. I'll have him questioned, but I doubt we'll learn much. The guild trains them well. Saraphina arrived moments later, still in her sleeping robes, power crackling around her like barely contained lightning. She surveyed the scene, the ruined room, the downed assassin, me sitting calmly with the blade that had killed my family. You are unharmed. Her voice was tightly controlled, but I felt a tempest of fury through our bond. Disappointed another one, I admitted. She knelt beside the assassin, placing a hand on his forehead. Her eyes went solid black for a moment. When they cleared, her expression was grim. Not the Shadow Guild, she said. Worse. He was sent by the Eternal Faction. Kale cursed in a language that predated human civilization. The Old Ones move against you. Against us, she corrected, taking my hand. They see our bond as an abomination, a corruption of vampire purity. And here I thought we were past all that, I sighed. The young ones might be, she stood, pulling me up with her. But vampires who remember when humans were prey, who fought in the blood wars 10,000 years ago, they have long memories and longer grudges. So what do? We show them the future is stronger than the past. She turned to Kale. Summon the council. All of them. It is time we address this directly. Your Majesty, Kale hesitated. The Eternals have refused all summons since your announcement about Lord Blackthornne. Lord Blackthorne. That's what they were calling me now, the human elevated by royal decree. Then we go to them, Saraphina decided. Ready my ship. We leave within the hour. I asked. Did you think I would leave you here for another assassin? She squeezed my hand. Where I go you go. That is what partnership means. An hour later we were aboard the Queen's personal vessel, a ship that looked more grown than built. Its bioorganic hull shifted between dimensions in ways that made my eyes water. Helena had insisted on accompanying us with a small contingent of loyal human and vampire guards. The Eternals reside in the Void Citadel, Saraphina explained as we traveled through folded space, a fortress between dimensions as old as their species. They retreated there after the last blood war, swearing never to interact with lesser beings again. And they're just going to let us walk in? They'll let me in. I am still their queen whether they like it or not. She stared out at the swirling non-space beyond the hall. What happens after that we will see. I studied her profile, seeing the immense weight she carried, 10,000 years of rule, of trying to drag her species into the future while the old ones clung ferociously to the past. Through our bond I felt her exhaustion, her flicker of doubt. You don't have to do this alone anymore, I said quietly. She turned to me and for a moment the mask slipped. I've been alone for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else. Good thing humans are quick learners. We'll figure it out together. Together, she repeated the word like it was a foreign, precious thing. Such a simple concept, so impossible for so long. Helena joined us, datapad in hand. I've been analyzing the political situation. The Eternals aren't our only problem. Admiral Corrin has been building support back on Earth. He's painting you as a traitor, Adrien, claiming the vampires have brainwashed you. Let me guess, he has a solution that involves more war? He's pushing for something called the Prometheus Protocol. Details are classified, but from what I can gather, it's some kind of weapon specifically designed to kill vampires. All vampires. Saraphina's hand tightened on mine. Genocide. That's the implication, Helena confirmed. He needs council approval, but he's gaining ground. Your actions have scared people. A human standing as vampire champion, winning against their best warrior, openly allied with their queen, it challenges everything they thought they knew. Fear makes people stupid, I said. Fear makes people dangerous, Saraphina corrected. And nothing is more dangerous than those who believe they are saving the world. The Void Citadel materialized out of nowhere, like a nightmare given form. Twisted spires of black crystal pierced dimensional boundaries, and gravity seemed to flow in multiple directions at once. My enhanced senses screamed warnings as we approached. Stay close to me, Saraphina warned as we disembarked. This is where the past fights back. The Citadel responds to age and power. It will attempt to destroy you simply for being human. The moment I stepped onto the Citadel's surface, I understood. The structure was alive, aware, and utterly hostile. Only Saraphina's presence, her raw power wrapped around me like armor, prevented the alien architecture from crushing me to atoms. We were met by vampires so ancient they barely resembled the species anymore. Their features were abstract, beautiful, and terrible in ways that hurt my eyes to perceive. The eldest stepped forward. Or perhaps he simply existed closer to us than before. Saraphina, his voice was the sound of dying stars. You bring contamination to our sanctuary. I bring evolution, Octavius, she replied, unafraid. As I always have. You bring a pet. His attention focused on me, and I felt the crushing weight of eons in his gaze. A mortal wearing the pretense of elevation. This mockery ends now. No, Saraphina said simply. It begins now. The war is over, Octavius. We must adapt or fade into myth. We are myth. His power flared and I saw galaxies die in his eyes. We were ancient when this universe was young. We do not adapt to prey. Then you'll die as fossils, I stated. Every eternal turned to stare. Apparently humans didn't speak in the void citadel. You dare. Octavius moved closer, reality itself bending around him. You dare speak to your betters? I dare speak truth, I countered, drawing on every ounce of courage and Seraphina's strength through our bond. You hide here in your fortress, pretending the universe hasn't changed, but it has. Humans aren't prey anymore. We're builders, dreamers, fighters. We crossed the void you've hidden in. We made the stars our own. And whether you like it or not, we're here to stay. Temporary sparks, another eternal hissed. You burn for a moment and think yourselves suns. Maybe, I agreed. But sparks can start fires, and fires can burn down even the oldest forest to make room for new growth. Octavius laughed, a sound like collapsing civilizations. Such arrogance. Such beautiful, naive arrogance. Very well. Let us settle this in the old way. You claim to be elevated. Prove it. Face me in the trial of essence. No, Seraphina stepped forward. Octavius. He doesn't understand. Then he dies ignorant. The Eternal's form shifted, becoming more concept than creature. Unless, of course, he admits his unworthiness and crawls back to his mortal realm. I looked at Seraphina through our bond. I felt her fear. Real fear. What's the trial of essence? I asked. A test of being, she said quietly. Not combat. Pure existence. Octavius will try to prove you're just a mortal playing at transcendence. If you fail, you stop existing. You never were. I considered that, being erased so completely that even memory died. Emma and Sarah were already gone. If I vanished too, who would remember them? Who would carry their light forward? I accept, I said. The citadel itself seemed to inhale. Even the other Eternals looked surprised. Adrien, no. Helena grabbed my arm. This is insane. You can't fight something like that. I'm not fighting, I said, gently removing her hand. I'm proving a point. That humans are more than they think we are. That we're worthy of standing beside anyone, even ancient vampires who've forgotten how to see beauty in finite things. Brave words, Octavius sneered. Let us see if your essence matches your rhetoric. The world dissolved. I found myself in a space that wasn't space. A time that wasn't time. Octavius was there, everywhere and nowhere, a presence that dwarfed galaxies. Show me your truth, mortal. His voice came from all directions. Show me what you are beneath the flesh. The attack wasn't physical. He reached into the very core of my being and began to pull, not trying to destroy me but to prove I was already nothing, just animated meat pretending at consciousness. I felt myself starting to fray, memories bleeding away, the weight of his age crushing my brief existence. But then I remembered the scar. Not just the wound but what it meant. Emma pushing me aside. Sarah reaching for our daughter. Love choosing sacrifice. Pain becoming purpose. I wasn't just Adrien Blackthornne. I was every human who'd ever stood when they should have fallen. Every parent who'd died for their children. Every person who'd chosen hope over fear, connection over isolation, tomorrow over yesterday. I was mortal, yes, finite, temporary. But I was also the species that looked at the infinite dark and decided to light candles. That measured eternity and found it wanting compared to a single moment of genuine love. I am human, I said, and my voice echoed in the non-space. I live, I love, I die. But in between, I burn bright enough to shame your cold eternity. I opened myself fully, showing him everything. The pain of loss, the joy of connection, the fear and the courage and the stupid, beautiful hope that made us reach for stars we'd never lived to touch. And through it all, like a golden thread, my bond with Seraphina, mortal and immortal choosing each other, creating something neither could be alone. Impossible, Octavius whispered. Improbable, I corrected. But here we are. The space shuddered. For a moment I saw Octavius as he truly was, not an abstract concept of power but a being so old he'd forgotten why he'd wanted to live forever in the first place, empty of everything but existence itself. "You burn," he said, and there was something like wonder in his voice. "So bright, so brief. How do you bear it?" "By sharing the light," I said. "By knowing that when I'm gone the fire continues in others. By loving more than we fear the dark." The trial ended. We were back in the Citadel, but something had changed. The Eternals were staring at me, not with contempt, but with a strange mix of curiosity and hunger. "He lives," one whispered. The mortal stood before the essence and remained. Octavius had resumed his barely human form, but he seemed smaller, diminished. Or maybe I was just seeing him more clearly. "You are more than you appear," he admitted. "But one exceptional human does not change the nature of your species." "No," I agreed. "But maybe it shows you've been looking at our nature wrong. You see prey. I see potential partners. You see mayflies. I see firebringers. You see endings. I see beginnings." Pretty words. True words. Saraphina stepped beside me, taking my hand. "I've walked among humans, learned from them. They've taught me something we forgot in our immortality, that meaning comes not from duration but from connection, not from power but from purpose." "You would bind our fate to theirs?" another Eternal asked. "Risk our eternity on their moment?" "I would build a future where both can thrive," she said. "Where vampire wisdom and human passion create something greater than either alone. And if they betray us, if they turn their flames toward our destruction? Then we'll face that together too," I said. "That's what alliance means. Not perfect trust, but the choice to try despite imperfection." The Eternals exchanged looks that spanned dimensions. Finally Octavius spoke. "You have given us much to consider. We will observe. See if this future you imagine has merit." It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. For beings who measured change in millennia, it was practically a revolution. As we prepared to leave, Octavius called out, "Adrien Blackthornne, a question. In the trial you showed me memories of loss, of pain that would crush lesser beings. How do you continue?" I thought of Emma's laugh, Sarah's smile. The weight of the scar over my heart. "Because they loved me enough to die for me," I said. "The least I can do is live for them. Live well enough to make their sacrifice worthwhile." He nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in mortality after all." The journey back was quiet. Saraphina stood at the viewing port, watching dimensions fold. I joined her, feeling the immense weight of what had just happened settling in. "You changed them," she said softly. "In all my years I've never seen the Eternals question themselves. I just showed them what they'd forgotten how to see, humanity's light." She leaned against me. "You know, Octavius was right about one thing. You are exceptional. Not all humans could have done what you did." "Maybe not," I admitted. "But more than you'd think. We're surprising that way." "Yes," she said with a smile. "You are." An urgent chime interrupted the moment. Helena looked up from her pad, her face pale. "We have a problem. Multiple problems. Admiral Corrin has moved up his timeline. He's called an emergency session of the Human Council. And," she hesitated. "What?" "Duke Malachar has been assassinated. Found dead in his chambers an hour ago. Adrien, he was killed with a human weapon. They're saying it's retaliation for him yielding to you." The moment of peace shattered. I felt Saraphina tense beside me. "It's starting," she said. "Someone wants war. Someone on both sides." "Then we stop them," I said. "How?" "We are one vampire and one whatever you're becoming against centuries of hatred and those who profit from it. We show them a better way," I said. "One connection at a time, one impossible alliance at a time, until the bridges outnumber the walls. That could take lifetimes. Good thing one of us is immortal." I managed to smile. "We've got time." But even as I said it, I knew time was the one thing we didn't have. "Kale," Seraphina commanded. "Set course for the emergency session. Maximum speed." "Your Majesty," Kale looked troubled. "Perhaps it would be safer to return to Crimson Prime. Let the humans sort out their own." "Their problems are our problems now," she interrupted. "Adrien is right. We face this together or we fall separately." As the ship changed course, I felt the bond pulse with shared determination and fear. We were racing toward a confrontation that could shatter the fragile peace. "Whatever happens," Seraphina said quietly, "I want you to know something. These weeks since you came to court, since we bonded, I felt more alive than I have in centuries. You've reminded me why existence matters. Saraphina, let me finish. If this goes badly, if the warmongers win, I need you to promise me something. Survive. Take what we've built and keep it alive, even if it's just the memory that peace was possible. We're both going to survive, I said firmly. And we're going to win not through force or politics, but by being too stubborn to let hatred have the last word. She laughed, that silver bell sound I'd grown to love. Stubborn? Yes, that's very human and very vampire to make it dramatic, I added. We do make a good pair. The best. The human fleet came into view, massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, all pointed at the vampire delegation that had already arrived. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and space would burn. Helena, I said. Open a channel, all frequencies. Adrien, what are you? Trust me. I stepped forward as the communications array activated. This is Adrien Blackthornne speaking to all human and vampire forces. I know you're angry. I know you're afraid. Someone killed Duke Malachar hoping to start a war. They're counting on our hatred being stronger than our hope. Let's prove them wrong. Static filled the channel. Then angry, overlapping voices. Murdered our best general. Human treachery. Enough. Saraphina's power flowed through the comms, silencing the chaos. You want someone to blame? Blame me. I started this by reaching across the divide. But I refused to let it end in blood. Duke Malachar died believing in a better future. Don't dishonor his memory by using it as an excuse for war. Pretty words, Your Majesty, Admiral Corrin's voice cut through. But one of your vampires tried to assassinate Blackthornne this morning. Now Malachar is dead by human weapons. The pattern is clear. The only pattern, I said, is that someone wants us at each other's throats and you're playing right into their hands. Or maybe, Corrin sneered, you're too compromised to see the truth. Your vampire lover has. Finish that sentence, I warned, and we'll discuss my compromise in person. Is that a threat? It's a promise that I'm done with people using fear to justify atrocities. I took a breath, feeling Saraphina's full support. Yes, I'm bonded to the Vampire Queen. Yes, it's changed me. And yes, I believe peace is possible. If that makes me compromised, then I'll wear that label proudly. As will I. A new, familiar voice joined, one of the vampire nobles from the Blood Council. I've seen what Lord Blackthornne is willing to sacrifice for peace. I've seen our queen risk everything to build bridges. If they can overcome their history, perhaps we can overcome ours. Easy words from the safety of a ship, Corrin spat. Let's see how peaceful you feel when. He was cut off by alarms. Every ship in both fleets suddenly detected the same thing, a massive energy signature approaching fast. What is that? Helena breathed, staring at the readings. I knew. Through the bond or instinct or shared paranoid experience. It's the real enemy, I said. The ones who've been playing both sides. Kill, can you identify those energy signatures? Shadow Guild stealth ships. Dozens of them. But that's impossible. They'd need a fleet base to hide that many. Unless someone's been funding them, Saraphina said, understanding dawning. Someone who profits from eternal war. The Shadow Guild ships decloaked, surrounding both fleets. Their leader's voice echoed across all channels. Greetings, cattle and parasites. Did you enjoy our little performance? One dead duke, a few failed assassinations, some well-placed weapons. And here you are, ready to annihilate each other. Beautiful. Who are you? Corrin demanded. We are the balance. The ones who ensure neither human nor vampire grows too strong. War is profitable. Peace, he laughed. Peace is bad for business. You killed Malachar, one of the vampire commanders snarled. We killed whoever needed killing to keep you fighting, just as we've done for centuries. Every peace treaty that failed, every negotiation that collapsed, that was us. And now, with both your fleets here, we can ensure another generation of profitable conflict. The Shadow Guild ships powered weapons. Both fleets began emergency maneuvers, suddenly united by a common threat. All ships, Saraphina commanded. Defensive positions. Protect the human vessels. Belay that. Corrin countered. Human ships maintain. Admiral, shut up and listen for once in your life. I cut him off. They played us. All of us. Every death, every betrayal, it was orchestrated. Is your pride really worth dying for? Silence on the human channels. Then, grudgingly, a human captain's voice. Human fleet defensive pattern Alpha. Coordinate with vampire forces. It was chaos. Ships prepared to fight each other were now attempting to work together. The Shadow Guild had counted on our division. They hadn't counted on desperation making allies of enemies. Saraphina, I said as the battle raged. Remember what you said about building bridges one at a time. This seems like an odd time for philosophy, my love. My love, even facing death. Those words made my heart race. Not philosophy, strategy. I turned to Kale. Can you patch me through to both fleets, ship to ship, direct to crew? That's highly irregular, but yes. Do it. As he worked, I felt Seraphina's curiosity. I showed her my plan, half-formed and probably insane. She smiled. Stubborn and dramatic. We really are perfect for each other. The channel opened. I could feel thousands of minds listening, human and vampire, united by danger if nothing else. This is Adrien Blackthornne, I began. Right now you're fighting beside people you were ready to kill an hour ago. Ask yourself why. Not because of orders or politics, but because when faced with a real threat, your instinct was to protect each other. Human ships shielding vampire. Vampire ships taking hits meant for humans. That's who we really are when we strip away the propaganda. A Shadow Guild missile broke through the defensive screen, heading for a damaged human cruiser. A vampire interceptor threw itself into the path, disappearing in a bloom of fire. Did you see that? I continued. A vampire just died to save humans. Not for politics, not for orders. For the simple truth that life matters more than labels. That's the future Saraphina and I are fighting for. That's what the Shadow Guild fears. Not our weapons, but our unity. The battle turned. Where before it had been desperate defense, now it became coordinated assault. Human tactical computers linked with vampire battle meditation. Ancient wisdom merged with innovative strategy. Impossible. The Shadow Guild leader's voice had lost its smugness. You're supposed to hate each other. That's the natural order. Nature changes, Seraphina said, her power flowing through every vampire ship. Evolve or extinct. Your choice. You think you've won? The Shadow Guild leader laughed bitterly. This is one fleet. We have bases throughout the galaxy. Supporters in every government. You can't fight economics with idealism. Watch us, I said. The battle ended with the Shadow Guild fleet scattered or destroyed. But the real victory was quieter. Human and vampire crews met face to face, sharing stories of the fight, realizing the enemy of their enemy might just be a friend. Admiral Corrin's shuttle requested permission to dock with our ship. I expected continued hostility. Instead he looked tired. I've been a soldier for 40 years, he said without preamble. Fighting vampires was my life, my purpose. Do you know what it's like to discover your purpose was a lie? I know what it's like to lose everything you thought you were, I said, and find something better on the other side. He studied me for a long moment. You really have changed. The Adrien Blackthornne who butchered vampires at Broken Stars wouldn't have given that speech. That Adrien Blackthornne died with his family, I said simply. This one chose to live for something better. And her. He looked at Seraphina. What's your angle, your majesty? Why risk everything for one human? Because one human reminded me that existing isn't the same as living, she replied. Because connections matter more than centuries. Because love is the only thing that makes any of this worthwhile. Well, she'd said it openly without hesitation. I felt the truth of it through our bond, warm and certain and terrifying in its completeness. Love, Corrin repeated. You're asking us to bet the future of both species on love. No, I said. We're asking you to bet on the possibility that we're more alike than different. That we want the same things. Safety, purpose, connection. That maybe, just maybe, we're stronger together than apart. He was quiet for a long moment. Then the Prometheus protocol dies with me. Whatever else happens, we won't commit genocide. It was a start. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of negotiations, revelations, and small victories. The Shadow Guild's recovered records revealed centuries of manipulation. Wars started for profit, peace treaties sabotaged for continued conflict. Both species had been played against each other by those who saw division as opportunity. But more than that, the shared battle had created something unexpected: friendship. Human crews who'd fought beside vampire ships couldn't go back to seeing them as monsters. Vampire warriors saved by human courage couldn't dismiss them as prey. It's not perfect, Helena said one evening as we watched human and vampire delegates actually laughing together over drinks. There are still hardliners on both sides. Still fear and prejudice and old wounds. Rome wasn't built in a day, I said. But it burned in one, she countered. All this progress, it's fragile. All the best things are, Seraphina joined us, slipping her hand into mine. But fragility isn't weakness. Sometimes it's what makes things worth protecting. A young vampire approached, one of the crew from the battle. He looked nervous but determined. "Lord Blackthornne," he said formally, then relaxed slightly. "Adrien, I wanted to, that is, thank you. What you said during the battle about life mattering more than labels, it helped make things clearer." "We all helped each other," I said. "That's what made the difference." He smiled, a surprisingly human expression. "My sister is bonded to a human. I haven't spoken to her in 50 years because of it. I think I'll call her tonight." After he left, Saraphina squeezed my hand. "Another bridge. One at a time," I agreed. That night, in the quiet of our quarters, we spoke about the future, not the grand political future but ours. The bond had grown stronger through everything we'd faced. "I am changing," I said. "Not vampire but not fully human anymore either. The medical scans show cellular modifications, enhanced healing, extended longevity. I might live for centuries." "Does that frighten you?" I thought about it. It should. But when I think about centuries with you, fear isn't what I feel. What do you feel? Hope, joy, love. I traced the scar on my chest. This brought us together. Pain transformed into possibility. Maybe that's what we are. Proof that even the worst wounds can heal into something beautiful. "My romantic human," she teased, but her eyes were bright with emotion. "Your dramatic vampire," I countered. "Mine," she agreed. "As I am yours, bonded beyond politics or species. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The scar still ached sometimes. It always would. But now it reminded me not just of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found. "Tell me," Saraphina said as we settled into bed. "Do you regret any of it? The pain, the politics, the impossible choice to stand with your family's killer's creator?" "Regret is the wrong word," I said. "Every step led here. Led to us. Led to a future Emma and Sarah would be proud of. I can't regret that. Even if it cost you your humanity. Who says I'm losing it? Maybe I'm just learning that humanity isn't about biology. It's about choice, about love, about building something better from the broken pieces. And sometimes," she added with a smile that had toppled empires, "they come from vampire queens with a flair for dramatic declarations." "That too," I laughed. The peace treaty was signed beneath twin moons on neutral ground. I stood beside Saraphina, feeling the weight of history. "Never thought I'd see the day," Helena murmured beside me. "The war really is over." "The shooting war," I corrected. "Now comes the harder part." "Lord Blackthornne," a familiar voice called. I turned to find Octavius, the ancient eternal. He looked more solid than before. "You continue to change," he observed. "The bond grows stronger. Soon you'll be neither human nor vampire, but something new. You're becoming a bridge made flesh. Is that a problem?" "On the contrary. Fascinating. I came to warn you, the Shadow Guild was not the only faction that profits from conflict. There are others, older and more patient, who see this peace as a temporary inconvenience. You know who they are." "I have suspicions, but even I dare not speak against them openly. They predate even the Eternals. They were old when your son was dust." He leaned closer. "Watch for signs, unexplained disappearances, technology that shouldn't exist, and above all, beware those who offer gifts too good to refuse." Before I could ask more, he was gone. The celebration continued. Later, in our quarters aboard Saraphina's ship, we finally had a moment alone. 10,000 years I've waited for this," she said softly. "Peace between our kinds. I'd given up hoping. What changed?" She turned to me, violet eyes bright with emotion. "You. A human who had every reason to hate me, choosing love instead. You changed everything, Adrien." "We changed everything," I corrected, pulling her close. We were interrupted by an urgent chime. Cale's face appeared on the screen, looking troubled. "Your Majesty, Lord Blackthornne, we have a situation. 3 human colonies have gone dark in the past hour. No distress signals, no communication, just silence." The warmth of the evening evaporated. "Shadow Guild remnants?" Saraphina asked. "Unknown." Cale hesitated. "The energy signatures detected before the blackouts don't match anything in our databases. Not human, not vampire, not any known species." I thought of Octavius's warning, technology that shouldn't exist. "Set course for the nearest affected colony," Saraphina commanded. "And alert both human and vampire fleets. If something's hunting our people, we respond together." The journey to Colony Theta 7 took 18 hours. Reports from the other colonies confirmed the identical pattern. Sudden energy surge, communications cut, silence. 9,000 souls just gone. The colony appeared intact at first glance, buildings undamaged, no sign of battle. But no life signs. The entire settlement was empty. We took a shuttle down with a mixed team of human and vampire investigators. The air felt thick, reality slightly out of joint. My enhanced senses screamed warnings. "Nobody touch anything," I ordered. "This whole place feels like a trap." We moved through empty streets. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. Whatever had happened, it had been instant. "Over here," one of the vampire investigators called. She stood before a wall covered in symbols that hurt to look at. "These weren't here before. They're fresh." I approached. The symbols seemed to shift and writhe, never quite the same when I looked directly at them. "It's a message," Saraphina breathed. "Ancient script, older than any vampire language." "What does it say?" She was quiet for a long moment, translating. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. "The harvest begins. The young races have grown ripe. What was given shall be reclaimed." "Given?" I asked. "What was given?" Before she could answer, reality tore open. The being that stepped through defied description. It was humanoid only in the way a shadow is humanoid, the vague suggestion of form without substance. Where it walked, the ground aged decades in seconds. The air around it flickered between states of matter. "Greetings, children," it said in a voice like cosmic background radiation. "We are the architects. We have come to collect." Every weapon was instantly raised, but the being merely gestured. Our arms froze, not from any force, but from the sudden realization that violence was meaningless here. This thing existed on a level where our concepts of combat simply didn't apply. "Collect what?" Saraphina stepped forward, every inch the queen despite facing something that predated her by eons. The architect's form shifted, showing glimpses of impossible geometries. "All of you. Humans, vampires, every species we seeded in this galaxy. The experiment is complete. Time to harvest the results." "Experiment?" I found my voice. "You're talking about entire civilizations like we're lab rats." A crude but not inaccurate comparison. The being seemed amused. "We planted the seeds of consciousness in this galaxy millions of years ago. Watched you grow, evolve, develop. Now we require that development for our own purposes." "The missing colonists," Helena said, reviewing the data. "Where are they?" "Archived. Their consciousness preserved for study and integration. They are not dead, merely collected." The architect focused on me and I felt its attention like ice in my veins. "You are an anomaly. Human and vampire merged. Evolution accelerated. If you think we're just going to let you collect us," I started. The being laughed, a sound like dying stars. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. We created you. You belong to us." "We belong to ourselves," Saraphina said firmly. "Whatever you did millions of years ago, we've grown beyond your design. We have free will." "Free will?" The architect seemed to taste the words. "Yes, that was an unexpected development, useful for diversity of thought patterns, but ultimately irrelevant. You will be collected. The only question is whether you come willingly or require processing." I felt rage building, ours and Seraphina's, through our bond. They saw us as property, experiments to be harvested. "Show us," I said suddenly, surprising everyone. "Show us what you really are, what you want. If you're so superior, so inevitable, then prove it. Give us a reason to come willingly." The architect tilted its head. "Curious, you seek understanding rather than conflict. Very well." Reality shifted. We were suddenly in a space between spaces. Stars were born and died in moments. Galaxies spun like coins. And through it all, the architects moved. Beings of pure thought and purpose, tending the universe like a garden. "We are gardeners," the architect explained. "We plant consciousness, nurture it, harvest it when ripe. Your thoughts, experiences, emotions, all are nutrients for our continued existence and growth. Without the harvest, we wither. Without us, new consciousness cannot be seeded. A cosmic food chain," I said. "With us as the crop." Simplistic but essentially correct. The vision faded, returning us to the colony. "Now you understand. Resistance is not futile. It is impossible. We exist beyond your physical reality. We cannot be fought, only accepted. Or rejected," Saraphina said quietly. The architect's form flickered. "Rejection means cessation. We will simply harvest you by force, losing much of the consciousness's unique flavor. Willing participation preserves more of what makes you you." I looked at my team, human and vampire, united in horror. We'd overcome centuries of war only to discover we were all cattle. But I remembered Octavius's warnings. You're lying, I stated. The architect's form solidified slightly. Explain. If you could just take us, you would. No speeches, no demonstrations. You'd have harvested this whole galaxy already. Something's changed. Something's limiting you. That's why you're starting small with colonies instead of worlds. That's why you're trying to convince us to come willingly. The young races grew stronger than you expected, Saraphina added, understanding flooding through our bond. Our consciousness evolved in ways you didn't predict. We're not just crops anymore. We're something new, and you need us to cooperate. Because forced harvesting would destroy what makes us valuable, I finished. You need our consciousness intact, our free will choosing submission. Without that, we're useless to you. The architect's form writhed with impossible anger. You understand less than you think. Yes, willing participation preserves more value, but do not mistake preference for weakness. We can take you by force if necessary. Then why haven't you? Helena stepped forward, emboldened. Why waste time talking? Because, a new voice said, they're bound by rules older than stars. Octavius materialized beside us along with several other Eternals. The architect actually took a step back. The ancient compact, Octavius continued, set down when the universe was young. The architects may harvest, but only according to the laws they themselves created. And one of those laws states that a species which achieves true unity, different races joining as one, cannot be harvested without unanimous consent. Humans and vampires, I breathed. Our alliance makes us protected. As long as you stand together, as long as your peace holds, they cannot simply take you, Octavius confirmed. They must convince you. The architect's form roiled with fury. You dare invoke the old laws, you who are barely older than these insects. I dare, Octavius said calmly, because I remember when your kind walked openly among us. Before you retreated to your higher dimensions, before you became parasites feeding on younger races. We are not parasites, the architect's voice shook reality. Without you, consciousness would find its own way, Saraphina interrupted. You didn't create awareness. You simply shaped it to serve your needs. You have 1 year, the architect said finally. 1 year to prepare your races for harvest. Use it wisely. When we return, we will collect what is ours, willing or not. The old laws protect you from immediate harvesting, not from eventual collection. And if we refuse? I asked. Then we will wait until your alliance fractures as alliances do, until human and vampire remember their hatred. And then, when you stand divided, we will take you piece by piece. The architect began to fade. 1 year. Choose wisely. It vanished, leaving the empty colony, a chilling reminder of what awaited us. Well, Kale said after a moment, I think we found a bigger problem than human-vampire relations. Despite everything, I laughed. Trust a vampire to find understatement in the face of cosmic horror. Options. Saraphina asked, already shifting into planning mode. We have advantages, Octavius said. The bond between you and Adrien is unprecedented. Human will merge with vampire essence. It might be the key to resistance. One bond against cosmic harvesters. Helena shook her head. We need more than that. Then we make more, I said. Not romantic bonds but connections. Real understanding between species. If unity protects us, then we become so unified they can't touch us. You're talking about fundamentally changing the nature of both species in a year, a vampire investigator said. I'm talking about survival, I corrected. They want to harvest our consciousness. Fine, let's make that consciousness something they can't digest, something new. Saraphina caught my hand. The architects made one mistake. They told us we have a year. Let's show them what humans and vampires can accomplish when extinction is the alternative. The next months were a whirlwind. The architect's revelation had done what centuries of war couldn't. Truly united human and vampire leadership. We established integration programs, not just cultural exchange but deeper connections. Saraphina and I served as living proof of what was possible. Our bond evolved beyond anything either species had experienced. I could feel eternity in her touch. She could taste mortality in mine. It's working, Helena reported 6 months in. The neural scans show actual changes. Humans developing vampire-like consciousness patterns. Vampires showing human creativity spikes. We're becoming something new. But resistance emerged among purists on both sides, fracturing the alliance. Saraphina found the solution. In ancient vampire archives, references to the communion, a ritual that could temporarily link multiple consciousnesses across species boundaries. It was abandoned, she explained, too intimate, too revealing. What if we modified it? I suggested. Temporary unity. Let everyone experience what we have. The beauty of connection across species lines. The first communion took place on the anniversary of the peace treaty. 200 participants, human and vampire, with Saraphina and me as anchors. I'll never forget that moment when the barriers fell. 200 minds touching, sharing, understanding. Human passion mixing with vampire wisdom. When it ended, former enemies embraced, having felt each other's deepest truths. The divide between species suddenly seemed arbitrary. Did you feel it? One human participant asked a vampire. Your memories of the first sunrise you ever saw. I felt your daughter's laughter, the vampire replied. So bright, so brief, so precious. I understand now why you burned so intensely. Word spread. More communions were organized, creating a network of understanding that transcended old boundaries. But it was the children who truly showed us the way. 8 months in, the first hybrid child was born. Mother human, father vampire. The child was impossible by all known biology, yet there she was, neither and both. She's hope, I told the council. Living proof that we're becoming something new. They're the answer, I declared. Not weapons or shields but evolution itself. We're becoming something that can't be harvested because we're no longer what they designed us to be. The architects returned exactly 1 year after their first appearance. They manifested in the same colony, expecting to find us cowering. Instead, they found a united front, some holding hybrid children, all linked by bonds of understanding. You have had your year, the lead architect stated. Choose willing harvest or forced collection. We choose neither, Saraphina stepped forward. We choose transcendence. Explain. You designed us as separate crops, I said. Humans for passion. Vampires for wisdom. But we've become something else. Something unified. Try to harvest us now and you'll find we're no longer digestible. Impossible. You are what we made you. We're what we made ourselves, I corrected. To prove it, we initiated the largest communion ever attempted. Millions of minds touching, sharing, becoming one while remaining many. The psychic shock wave rippled reality as consciousness transcended its design boundaries. In that moment of unity, we showed the architects what we'd become. Something new, something that couldn't be harvested without destroying the very qualities they sought. The architect reeled back, its form destabilizing. What have you done? We've evolved, Saraphina said simply. By your parameters, beyond your harvest. We're no longer your crop. We're our own species. This is not possible. Impossible is just another word for untried, I said. We tried. We succeeded. And now you have a choice. Leave us in peace or try to harvest something that will poison your entire existence. You have won this round. We cannot harvest what you've become without corrupting ourselves. But do not think this is over. Someday when you've forgotten this unity we will return. Then we'll be ready, I promised. Because this isn't just an alliance anymore. It's evolution. The architects vanished. So, Helena said. We've prevented cosmic harvest, merged species, created impossible children. What's left? Living, Saraphina said softly. Building the future we've earned. Exploring what we can become. I pulled her close, feeling our bonds sing with possibilities. Together, I agreed. That night, as celebrations erupted across both civilizations, Saraphina and I stood on a balcony overlooking the hybrid city that had grown around the first colony. Humans and vampires walking side by side, children who were both and neither playing in streets that knew no segregation. My father would have hated this, I said quietly. He died believing vampires were monsters. Died trying to protect us from them. And my sire would have seen humans as nothing but food, Saraphina replied. Perhaps it's good they're not here to see what we've become. Or maybe they'd have changed too given the chance. I touched my scar, feeling the phantom pain that would always remind me of loss. Emma and Sarah died because we couldn't see past our differences. But their sacrifice led to this, to a future where no one else has to lose their family to hatred. A future worth any price. Even becoming something beyond human, Saraphina agreed. She turned to face me, violet eyes bright with love and eternity. Humanity was never about biology, my love. It was about choice, about growth, about connection. You're more human now than ever. You've just expanded the definition. I kissed her then, feeling our bond pulse with shared existence. Around us, the city hummed with unified life. What do you think they'll call us? I asked. This new thing we're becoming. Does it matter? Saraphina smiled. We are what we are, proof that love is stronger than design, that unity can overcome any division. As dawn broke, a dawn that neither burned vampires nor limited humans, I understood something fundamental. We'd won not through force or cleverness, but through the simple, impossible act of choosing connection over isolation. The architects had designed us as crops, but crops that think, feel, and choose can become gardeners themselves. I love you, I told Saraphina. Whatever we're becoming, I'm glad it's with you. Forever? She asked, though she knew the answer. Forever, I confirmed. Or whatever comes after. The scar pulsed once more, then settled into warmth. Not pain anymore, but promise. 5 years after the architects retreated, I stood in what we'd come to call the Unity Garden. Hybrid children played among flowers that bloomed in both darkness and light. My hand unconsciously moved to my chest where the scar had finally stopped aching. Still checking if it's real? Saraphina appeared beside me, our bond humming. Sometimes I can't believe we made it, I admitted. One of the children, Maya, ran up to us. Uncle Adrien, Aunt Saraphina. Will you tell us the story again about the scar and the declaration? We like hearing it, another child chimed in. It reminds us why we're special. As they scampered off, Kale approached with a troubled expression. We have a situation. Deep space monitors have detected something. Ships approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Architects? I asked, tension spiking. No, the energy signatures are different, more conventional. But there are thousands of them. 20,000 vessels and counting, Helena reported in the command center. The ship configurations match some of the ancient vampire archive references, Helena added. These might be the lost colonies. Saraphina tensed beside me. The lost colonies were vampire settlements that had departed the galaxy thousands of years ago to escape contamination from younger species. If it's them, Kale said slowly, they won't be pleased with what they find. Could restart everything we've worked to prevent, I finished. Prepare the fleets not for war but for defense and send a message on all frequencies, Saraphina commanded grimly. Let them know they approach a united civilization. Days passed in tense silence. Then, 3 days before their arrival, they broke silence. The message was simple: we are the pure. We return to reclaim our world from corruption. Submit to cleansing or face judgment. Well, Kale said, that's unambiguous. Octavius materialized in the command center. So they've returned at last. This should be interesting. Can we fight them? Helena asked. Saraphina shook her head. It would be a massacre on both sides. Then we don't fight, I said. We show them what they missed by leaving. We show them what evolution looks like. They call it corruption, Kale pointed out. Then we corrupt them with truth, I countered. They expect to find vampires ruling over humans or humans having overthrown vampires. They don't expect to find us unified. We invite them down. Show them the colonies, the children, the life we've built. Make them see what they'd be destroying. You're gambling everything on their curiosity, Octavius observed. No, I corrected. I'm gambling on the fact that even the most rigid mind can be changed by direct evidence. Reality has a way of shattering fantasies. The invitation was sent and, surprisingly, accepted. The Pure would send a delegation of 100 to assess the contamination level. The Pure shuttle landed in the central plaza of Unity City. As the doors opened, I understood why they'd fled. They were what vampires had been before contact, terrible in their perfection. Their leader stepped forward and Seraphina whispered, Matthias. He was tall, pale as moonlight, with eyes like frozen silver. Seraphina, my own sister. I see the rumors of your degradation were not exaggerated, Matthias said. His gaze moved to me. You keep pets now. I keep partners, Seraphina replied, steel in her voice. This is Adrien Blackthornne, my bonded mate and co-leader of the Unity Coalition. Bonded? You soul-bound yourself to prey? How far you've fallen. How far I've risen, she corrected. But you'll need to see that for yourself. The tour that followed was tense. The Pure delegation moved through Unity City with predatory grace. They observed the mixed populations with disgust. They walk freely, one Pure vampire muttered, watching humans pass without fear. No terror, no submission. What have you done? We've built a society, I said, staying close to Seraphina. One based on mutual respect rather than dominance. Mutual, Matthias turned those silver eyes on me. What can humans offer vampires besides sustenance? Innovation, creativity, passion, perspective. I met his gaze steadily. Everything immortality tends to crush. The confrontation with the pure is now underway, with the demonstration of your unified civilization being your only defense. What unexpected element or next step will you use to challenge Matthias's rigid beliefs and prove that your evolution is not corruption? Words from something that will be dust in a century, Matthias said, scoffing at my defiance. Maybe. But my ideas, my children, my connections, those will outlive even you. We reached the school where hybrid children learned alongside human and vampire youth. Maya ran up to us, then stopped, sensing the tension. Who are they? She asked, studying the pure with those deep, layered eyes. Visitors, Saraphina said carefully. From far away. Maya tilted her head, then stepped toward Matthias. You're sad, she announced with a child's directness. Like the old ones before they learned to laugh again. Matthias recoiled as if struck. What is this abomination? I'm not an abomination, Maya said firmly. I'm evolution. My teacher says evolution means getting better over time. You've been gone a long time. Maybe you could evolve too. The silence was deafening. Then one of the pure, younger looking than the others, knelt to Maya's level. Evolution, he repeated. What does that feel like? Maya smiled. Like being complete. Not human or vampire, but both. Like, she scrunched her face thinking, a song that needs different notes to sound right. Enough. Matthias commanded. Kira, stand. We're not here to be corrupted by aberrations. But Kira didn't move immediately. In her eyes I saw something the architects had never understood. Curiosity. Perhaps we should listen, Kira said quietly. We came to judge what we left behind. Shouldn't we understand it first? What's to understand? They've polluted our bloodline, weakened our essence. Have they? Octavius appeared. Ancient vampires had impeccable dramatic timing. Or have they strengthened it? Tell me, Matthias of the Pure, when last did you create something new? When last did you feel wonder? When last did you grow? We are perfect as we are, Matthias insisted. Perfect, Octavius smiled. Yes, I remember believing that before I learned that perfection is just another word for death. These children, this unity, it's messy and complicated and alive in ways we forgot how to be. He gestured to the city. While you preserved yourselves in isolation, they built something unprecedented. And the children? They're not weakened hybrids. They're the next step. That evening we held a communion, open to any who wished to experience it. To my surprise, Kira volunteered along with a dozen others. I need to understand, Kira replied to Matthias's objections. We came to judge. How can we judge what we refuse to comprehend? As pure vampires touched the merged consciousness of our unity, I felt their shock, their awe, their fear. When it ended, Kira was weeping tears of blood. We've been fools, she whispered. We preserved our bodies but lost our souls. They found what we were too afraid to seek. You've been weakened, Matthias countered, but his voice lacked conviction. I have been awakened, she turned to face him. Don't you see? Purpose beyond power. Connection beyond control. Life beyond mere existence. The delegation fractured. Half stood with Matthias, clinging to old beliefs. Half gathered around Kira, hungry for connection. You have a choice, I addressed them all. Take what you've learned back to your fleet. Tell them what you've seen. Join us in building something unprecedented. Or cling to isolation and watch the universe pass you by. I'll need proof, Kira said. Something to show the fleet. Many won't believe words alone. Then we give them more than words. I felt the certainty crystallize. Bring them all. Not for war but for the largest communion ever attempted. Let every one of them feel what we've built. Then let them choose. Matthias's resistance was overcome by his own curiosity, and 3 days later the entire Pure Fleet moved into orbit, not in attack formation but ready to listen. The communion that followed linked millions of minds, flowing through Saraphina and me. The Pure experienced the entire journey, the war, the peace, the architects, and at the heart of it all, our story, the scar that brought us together, the love that transcended species, the children that proved evolution was necessary. When the communion ended, Kira's voice broadcast to all, I choose evolution. I choose unity. I choose life over mere existence. Ship by ship, the fleet responded, powering down weapons and requesting permission to join. Matthias's image appeared on all screens. You've won, he said, looking at Saraphina and me. Not through strength or cunning, but through something I didn't believe existed anymore. Hope. He paused. I've spent millennia preserving what we were. You've shown me what we could be. I would like to learn. Learning is all we ask, Saraphina replied. Welcome home, brother. The integration was difficult, but with each passing day connections formed. Pure vampires experienced human creativity, met the hybrid children, and saw not corruption but possibility. Kira approached us one evening. I wanted to thank you, she said, for showing us what we'd forgotten. That existence without connection is just elaborate death. She placed a cold hand over my chest. Your scar? May I? I nodded. Such pain transformed into purpose. The pure believed scars were weakness, evidence of imperfection. But this, she smiled. This is proof that breaking can lead to becoming. That night, as Saraphina and I retired, I declared, no more crises. I am officially retiring from saving civilization. Saraphina laughed. Until the next one. The universe seems to enjoy testing us. Let it. We've faced everything from each other's hatred to cosmic predators to our own ancestors' fears. What's left? Living, she said simply. Day by day, choice by choice, building something worth all the battles. With you always. I touched my chest one more time. The scar was truly just a mark now. Its purpose fulfilled. It had brought us together, forced us to see beyond surfaces to possibilities, and in doing so, it had saved not just two species but the very concept of growth. I love you, I told Saraphina. Whatever we are, whatever we become. Forever, she agreed. Or whatever comes after. The future stretched before us, uncertain but no longer feared. We'd proven that unity could overcome any division, that evolution was stronger than preservation, that love could bridge any gap. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Not conquest but connection.